My parents mortgaged our family home to fund my brother's lavish lifestyle while completely ignoring my struggles, then tried to take over my wedding like it was theirs. But what I did next silenced every last one of them and changed everything. My wedding is set for April, an event my fiancé and I have been meticulously planning for over a year. She's 25 and ever since she was a little girl, she's envisioned a spring wedding. You know, the whole blossoming flowers, ideal weather atmosphere. I truly believe it's a wonderful concept as well. It feels fresh and full of optimism, much like embarking on a new chapter in life. I had been eagerly anticipating it, or at least I was until last week. To provide some background, I'm 27, and my older brother is 30. Our upbringing was quite distinct. He embodies the quintessential favored child, the one who seemingly does no wrong in our parents' estimation. Yes, that's him. I mean, they never explicitly stated it, but it was always apparent he was their preferred child. If he encountered difficulties, it was merely he's just finding his way. If I made a mistake, oh, it was catastrophic. That dynamic persisted even as we matured. When it was time for university, my parents' favoritism became profoundly evident. They secured a second mortgage on their residence to cover my brother's tuition. It was a substantial undertaking, and they struggled with the repayments for many years. By the time I was prepared for college, there were no funds remaining for me. I had to manage on my own. Scholarships, part-time employment, the entire arduous process. Don't misunderstand, I'm proud of how I navigated it, but a definite undercurrent of resentment lingered. Fast forward to the present, and I've secured a rather respectable position. The remuneration is sufficient that I began assisting my parents financially. They are still settling that second mortgage, so for the past couple of years, I've been sending them $650 each month to alleviate their burden. It wasn't something they requested. I simply felt capable, so I acted. Yet, despite all of this, it still feels as though they don't truly acknowledge me. My brother continues to be the focal point, even though he hasn't accomplished much since graduating college. Let's discuss my brother for a moment. He has been in a relationship with this woman for approximately 3 years, and from what I've gathered, things are not going well. She has been dropping hints, and by hints I mean practically glaring signals, that she desires a marriage proposal, but he has been procrastinating. Honestly, I don't believe he's prepared for matrimony, but that's not truly my concern. I've refrained from involvement because, well, who desires to be entangled in someone else's romantic complications? That remained the case until last Saturday, when I received a call from my mother. It was around lunchtime, and I was relaxing at home with my fiancé, finalizing some wedding details. You know, minor aspects like seating arrangements and floral selections. My mother telephoned and stated, "Hey, can you come over? We need to talk." Her tone was grave, as if something significant was unfolding. Naturally, I inquired about the subject, but all she offered was, "You'll comprehend when you arrive." I won't deny it, I was somewhat irritated. Firstly, we were in the midst of wedding preparations. Secondly, I dislike it when people initiate the "we need to talk" conversation without directly disclosing the topic. It's as though they intend for you to fret about it on the journey there. My fiancé could sense my annoyance and asked if I wished to simply disregard it and continue with the wedding tasks. I considered it, but I felt compelled to discover what was so serious it couldn't be conveyed over the phone. I informed my fiancé I would go over and attempt to make it brief. "How bad could it be?" I remarked. She rolled her eyes but offered no objection. In retrospect, I probably should have remained home. So, I arrived at my parents' residence, and it felt like stepping into some kind of intervention. My brother was seated on the sofa with a self-satisfied expression, and my parents were positioned opposite him, as if they had rehearsed an important address. The atmosphere was excessively formal for a casual family discussion, and I immediately felt uneasy. I took a seat, and my mother commenced her proposition. She began by emphasizing the importance of family, and how significant occasions are best shared with loved ones. Then she delivered the bombshell. My brother had this brilliant notion to propose to his girlfriend during my wedding reception. She actually claimed it would be so romantic, and the perfect moment, since all the family would already be present. My brother, of course, was beaming from ear to ear, as if this was the most ingenious scheme anyone had ever conceived. I didn't even permit her to conclude. I interrupted her mid-sentence with a firm "absolutely not." I mean, who even conceives of such a thing? It's my wedding, the day my fiancé and I have been planning for over a year. How is it acceptable to simply commandeer that for his relationship drama? I anticipated some resistance, but I did not expect them to intensify their stance the way they did. My father intervened with his typical family should support each other discourse, acting as though I was being unreasonable for declining. Then my brother decided to interject, labeling me selfish and accusing me of ruining his big moment. His big moment. I could not believe what I was hearing. I asked him directly, "Why can't you arrange your own proposal instead of capitalizing on my wedding?" He shrugged and stated it was the ideal chance because all the family would already be there, and it would involve less effort for him. I could feel my temper rising. I attempted to remain composed initially, but they simply continued to press. My mother asserted I was overreacting, and that a proposal would not detract from the wedding. She even had the audacity to suggest it would make the day more memorable. My father nodded in agreement, as if this were the most logical concept in the world, and my brother merely sat there, looking so pleased, as if he believed he had already prevailed. That's when I lost my composure. I informed them loudly and clearly that if they even contemplated proceeding with this, they would all be uninvited from the wedding. And I didn't stop there. I reminded them about the $650 I send them every month to assist with their mortgage. The same mortgage they obtained to finance my brother's college education. I told them if they couldn't show respect to me and my fiancé on our day, that financial assistance would cease immediately. The room fell into an immediate silence after that. My mother appeared on the verge of tears, and my father simply stared at me as if I had struck him. My brother, however, did not back down. He began shouting about how I was being unfair, and how I was holding the family hostage with money. He claimed I was punishing them simply because he wished to do something special for his girlfriend. I told him that if his definition of special involved disrupting someone else's wedding, perhaps he wasn't ready for marriage in the first place. At that juncture I had endured enough. I rose and informed them I would not debate it further. I declared, "This is my final decision. If you attempt to carry this out, you are excluded, no wedding, no financial support, nothing." Then I departed the house without a backward glance. Now, I honestly have no idea what direction this is taking. Am I being excessively harsh here? I understand that family dynamics can be complicated, but this simply feels like a tremendous overreach. I don't believe it's unreasonable to desire my wedding to actually be about, well, my wedding. But perhaps I'm overlooking something. Am I in the wrong for taking a firm stance and establishing that boundary? Please let me know your thoughts because I'm genuinely at a loss right now. When I returned, my fiancé immediately sensed something was amiss. I recounted everything they had said, including my brother's brilliant scheme and my parents' full endorsement. She was just as incensed as I was. In fact, she might have been even angrier. She repeatedly exclaimed, "How dare they attempt to spoil our day like this?" She was prepared to disinvite my brother then and there. I told her I wished to grant them one last opportunity to abandon this absurdity, but I could tell she remained unconvinced. "They've already revealed their true selves," she remarked. "What makes you believe they'll relent now?" And she wasn't mistaken. The following day, I received a call from my mother. She stated she desired to discuss matters, but it was evident she merely wished for me to alter my decision. She kept reiterating phrases like, "It's just one moment, and it won't diminish the wedding." I informed her for the umpteenth time that my answer was no. She attempted to manipulate me with guilt, claiming my brother was heartbroken, and that I was tearing the family apart over something trivial. I could not believe what I was hearing. I told her, if this is so insignificant, then why can't he simply propose on a different day? She had no response to that. Later that evening, my brother appeared at my house. He didn't even bother to text or call beforehand. He simply arrived and began pounding on my door. When I opened it, he immediately launched into a tirade about how I had ruined his plans and humiliated him in front of our parents. He was shouting so loudly I'm quite certain the neighbors could hear. He continued to lament about his girlfriend growing impatient, and how this was his final opportunity to propose before she departed. I told him directly, "That's your concern, not mine. If she's going to leave you over this, perhaps your relationship has more significant issues than you realize." That silenced him for a moment, but then he resumed yelling, asserting I was selfish and envious and did not wish for him to be content. At that point, I instructed him to leave before I contacted someone to compel his departure. After he stormed off, I thought perhaps, just perhaps, things would settle down. No. The very next day, I received a call from my grandmother. She is our sole remaining grandparent, and she has always served as the family's peacemaker. She began by stating she had learned of the situation and wished to assist in mediating. Of course, that merely implied my brother had gone crying to her with his version of events. She expressed disappointment in how I was handling matters and asserted that family should remain united, particularly during significant occasions like weddings. I could discern immediately that my brother had distorted the narrative to portray himself as the victim, so I calmly elucidated everything to her. How my brother desired to propose at my wedding, how my parents were fully supporting him, and how I had refused. You would assume that would have sufficed, right? Absolutely not. She began uttering phrases like, "It's just a proposal, and it won't detract from your wedding if it's executed tastefully." I told her, "Grandma, it's my wedding, not his. Why is this so difficult for everyone to comprehend?" She attempted to emphasize the family comes first perspective, but I was not receptive. I stated, "If family comes first, then why isn't anyone respecting me and my fiancé on our day?" The conversation became heated thereafter. She continued to defend my brother, claiming he was in a difficult predicament and simply wished to make his proposal special. I reminded her that he is 30 years old and entirely capable of arranging his own proposal without encroaching upon someone else's event. She did not appreciate that response. Things escalated, and before I realized it, she was weeping and declaring I was being cruel to my family. I felt remorse for upsetting her, but concurrently, I was not going to yield. I told her, if supporting family entails allowing people to take advantage of me, then perhaps I don't require that kind of support. After I ended the call, I was utterly exhausted. This entire situation was spiraling into far more drama than I had ever anticipated. My fiancé, as always, was my steadfast support. She was incensed, stating, "This is beyond disrespectful. They are completely out of line." I told her I concurred, and that we needed to remain resolute on our boundaries. She was displeased with how things had intensified, but she recognized we could not permit this to slide. The subsequent few days were strangely quiet. No calls, no texts, nothing. It felt like the calm preceding a storm. I began to wonder if perhaps they had finally grasped the message, but deep down I knew it wasn't over. My family is not precisely renowned for letting matters go. And sure enough, my mother called again a few days later. This time she attempted a different strategy. Instead of employing guilt, she tried to appeal to my sense of fairness. She stated, "We've spoken to your brother and he's willing to compromise. He won't do it during the ceremony, only at the reception. Isn't that reasonable?" I could not believe what I was hearing. I told her, "No, it's not reasonable. The answer is still no. End of discussion." She sighed and remarked, "I don't comprehend why you're being so difficult about this." At that point I was finished. I told her, "If you raise this topic again, you're uninvited. I mean it." Then I hung up. Now we find ourselves in a bit of a stalemate. My parents haven't called since that last conversation, and my brother hasn't reappeared, thankfully. My fiancé and I are proceeding with our wedding plans, but there's still this pervasive apprehension. A part of me hopes they will come to their senses, but honestly, I'm not holding my breath. That's the current situation. I'll provide an update if anything changes, but for now, I'm simply striving to concentrate on the wedding and prevent this turmoil from spoiling what should be one of the happiest days of my life. Thank you for staying with me through this. It helps to know I'm not alone in deeming this entire situation absurd. Also, a few of you mentioned it appears my fiancé has harbored animosity towards my parents from the outset, so let me address that first before delving into the latest upheaval. Okay, regarding the comment suggesting my fiancé seems to dislike my parents. Honestly, that's not accurate. She has consistently been respectful, and has made an effort to cultivate a positive relationship with them. However, over the years she has witnessed firsthand how I've been treated, and she is fiercely protective of me. It's not that she dislikes them. Rather, she's exasperated by how one-sided things can feel. She has been incredibly patient, but when they overstep boundaries like this, it's challenging for her to remain silent, and frankly, I cannot fault her. Now let's address the obvious issue. After the recent round of absurdity involving my brother, my mother, and then my grandmother, there was a period of silence. Nobody contacted me, and I didn't reach out to them either. Honestly, it was a relief to experience some quiet. My fiancé and I focused on finalizing wedding details, table arrangements, cake tastings, seating charts, all that enjoyable stuff. But even with all of that, the tension lingered. I kept wondering when the next problem would arise. Well, a few days ago, my mother finally reached out. She initiated the conversation by stating she no longer wished to argue, and simply wanted to move forward as a family. I was skeptical, but I allowed her to speak. She claimed my brother had agreed to abandon the entire idea of proposing at the wedding. She elaborated on how he realized it was disrespectful, and how he desired to rectify things. I remained unconvinced. It felt too effortless, especially given how unyielding they had all been about this. Still, I told her if he was genuinely abandoning it, then fine, but I wouldn't simply accept his word. I needed to hear it directly from him. She stated she would speak to him and have him call me. I didn't exactly hold my breath, but I decided to extend them the benefit of the doubt for the time being. Later that evening, my brother contacted me. He began with a half-hearted apology, stating he was sorry for causing stress and that he hadn't realized how crucial it was to me and my fiancée to keep the wedding centered on us. He claimed he had decided to postpone and propose at a different time. His tone didn't sound sincere, but at least he was uttering the appropriate words. I told him, "If you're serious about this, then I'm willing to move past it, but if you even contemplate attempting something at the wedding, I'm not hesitant to remove you." He told me to calm down and confirmed that his girlfriend was already becoming distant, and that he had begun to question the entire concept of committing to her. For the first time, he reverted to conversing and joking with me, just like a brother, then promised not to disrupt anything. After that call, I informed my fiancée of what had transpired. I was cautiously optimistic, but she made it clear she still didn't trust him. "I'll believe it when I witness it," she stated. Honestly, I felt the same way, but at least it appeared the drama might finally be subsiding. With that resolved, we immersed ourselves in wedding preparations. The significant day is only a couple of weeks away, and there is still so much to accomplish. We finalized the menu, reviewed the timeline with our wedding planner, and confirmed all the vendors. It felt good to concentrate on the exciting aspects again instead of constantly contending with conflict. But of course it wasn't long before things took another turn. A few days after the call with my brother, my father texted me. He stated he wished to ensure everything was all right and inquired if we could meet to converse. I agreed, thinking perhaps he merely wanted to smooth things over before the wedding. When we met, he seemed uneasy. He kept circling the topic of my brother without actually saying much. Eventually, he admitted he was concerned my brother might still attempt something at the wedding. I wasn't surprised. I told him, "If he does, he's being ejected, no exceptions." My father began discussing how emotions can run high at weddings, and how I should try to be understanding if my brother got carried away in the moment. I stopped him right there. I stated, "If you're suggesting I let him get away with something, then we have a problem. I'm not allowing anyone to ruin this day for me or my fiancé." He retreated after that, but the entire conversation left a sour taste in my mouth. It felt as though he was attempting to gauge how far I would permit things to go. When I arrived home, I informed my fiancée about the conversation, and she was furious. She exclaimed, "This is precisely why I don't trust them. They're still attempting to shield him." At this juncture, we decided to devise a contingency plan. We spoke to our wedding planner and requested her to brief the venue staff. We didn't delve into all the intricate details, but we made it clear that if anyone attempted to disrupt the event, they were to be escorted out immediately. It felt a bit extreme, but honestly, I didn't want to take any chances. Now our wedding is in just 2 days, and the atmosphere is a peculiar blend of anticipation and underlying apprehension. My fiancé and I are striving to remain focused on the final touches, double-checking RSVPs, finalizing the seating chart, and ensuring everything is prepared. But there's this persistent worry lingering in the back of my mind. What if my brother hasn't truly relented? What if my parents are still subtly encouraging him? I'm attempting to dismiss it and remain optimistic, but it's difficult not to dwell on it. Tomorrow is the rehearsal dinner, and while I'm hopeful everyone will behave, there's still that nagging doubt. My brother hasn't said or done anything suspicious lately, and my parents have been quiet since that last conversation. On the surface, it seems as though things are fine, but with my family, you never truly know. I keep telling myself, just 2 more days. If I can get through this, everything will be fine. We are doing everything within our power to ensure the day proceeds smoothly. The wedding planner is prepared, the venue staff knows what to be vigilant for, and we've made it clear that no nonsense will be tolerated. My fiancé is fully prepared to remove individuals if necessary, and honestly, so am I. I'm holding on to cautious optimism, but if this entire situation has taught me anything, it's that with my family, nothing is ever as straightforward as it appears. Fingers crossed that this truce is legitimate, and not merely another prelude to more conflict. I'll inform you all how it unfolded after the momentous day. Hey everyone! It's time for the update you've been anticipating. The wedding day has come and gone, and let me tell you, unfortunately, it was every bit as chaotic as I had feared. We navigated through it, but not without some drama. Okay, so the day commenced flawlessly. The weather was magnificent, my fiancé appeared breathtaking, and everything at the venue was proceeding smoothly. We had a tranquil morning preparing, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could genuinely breathe. My parents arrived punctually, appearing cheerful and surprisingly normal. Even my brother showed up without any smug demeanor or peculiar energy, which I must admit caught me off guard for a moment. I thought perhaps they truly had abandoned the entire proposal idea. The ceremony proceeded without a hitch. My fiancé walked down the aisle, and I could barely maintain my composure. It was perfect, precisely what we had envisioned. The vows, the kiss, everything felt like a fairy tale. We walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, and I was thinking, okay, perhaps I was mistaken. Perhaps they actually respected our wishes. But deep down I knew it was too good to be true. The reception commenced, and the energy was incredible. People were laughing, dancing, and having a wonderful time. My fiancé and I were occupied moving between tables, expressing gratitude to everyone for attending. That's when I noticed my brother. He was lingering near the DJ booth, conversing with my father and appearing far too serious for someone who was supposed to be enjoying himself. My intuition told me something was amiss, but I decided to give them the benefit of the doubt. Big mistake. Fast forward to the speeches. My father spoke first, uttering all the customary pleasantries about marriage and family. Then it was my brother's turn. I was already on edge because I didn't even want him to deliver a speech, but my mother insisted, claiming it was important for him to be a part of the day. He began normally enough, discussing how delighted he was for me and my fiancé, sharing a few amusing childhood anecdotes. But then, unexpectedly, he began to become emotional and mentioned his girlfriend. The entire room fell silent. I could feel my fiancé's hand tighten around mine as my brother began speaking about how deeply he loved his girlfriend, and how being present that day had inspired him to take the next step. My heart pounded, and before I could react, he turned to his girlfriend, produced a ring, and knelt down. The room went completely silent for a moment, and then there was scattered applause. His girlfriend appeared utterly astonished, and not in a positive way. My fiancé released my hand, stood up, and exclaimed, "Are you serious?" I didn't even think. My body simply reacted. I rose, walked directly to my brother, and told him, "You need to leave immediately." He attempted to argue, claiming it was just a small proposal and didn't detract from the wedding. I wasn't having it. I signaled to the venue staff, who were prepared for this exact scenario, and they approached to escort him out. That's when things truly erupted. My father became involved, shouting at me to let it go and not ruin the day. My brother yelled about how I was being selfish, and his girlfriend. She looked as though she wished to vanish. By now, the entire reception was observing this unfolding. The staff managed to get my brother outside, but he was still shouting. My father followed, and I couldn't restrain myself. I pursued them outside the venue. It was chaotic. My brother was ranting about how I had embarrassed him in front of everyone, and my father was attempting to mediate, suggesting we should discuss it. I told them both, "There's nothing to discuss. You disrespected me and my wife, and you're finished here." That's when my brother lost control. He stepped towards me as if he intended to strike me, but the venue staff intervened and restrained him. My father began yelling at the staff, claiming they were overreacting and that we were family, but they were not receptive. They informed him, "Sir, you need to leave or we'll contact the police." At this point, my brother's girlfriend finally spoke up. She stated, "I didn't even want this. You've made a fool of yourself." Then she stormed off, leaving my brother standing there like an imbecile. Eventually, the staff managed to remove both my brother and father from the premises. My mother emerged, weeping, and began imploring me to allow them back in. I told her, "If you don't return inside and compose yourself, you're next." She looked at me as if I had slapped her, but she went back inside without another word. When I re-entered the reception, the atmosphere was tense. People were whispering, and I could feel all eyes on me. My wife looked furious about the entire situation. She approached, embraced me, and stated, "Let's move on. This is our day." And that's precisely what we did. We took a moment to compose ourselves, and then we rejoined the celebration. We danced, cut the cake, and attempted to salvage what remained of the evening. By the end, most people were back to enjoying themselves, but there was no denying the shadow my brother's stunt cast over everything. When the reception finally concluded, my wife and I collapsed into the car, exhausted. She looked at me and said, "Well, at least we handled it." We chuckled because honestly, what else could we do? It wasn't the perfect day we had envisioned, but we were married, and that's what truly mattered. However, the day after the wedding was a flurry of phone calls and hushed conversations from the extended family. Apparently, news of what transpired spread rapidly, and suddenly everyone had an opinion. Some were calling to check in but couldn't resist inserting subtle criticisms or probing for details about the drama. Others outright reprimanded me for causing tension, as if my brother's actions weren't the root of the problem. My aunt even remarked something like, "You know how he is. You should have just overlooked it for the sake of peace." Meanwhile, the family group chat transformed into a passive-aggressive battleground of cryptic messages, and pointed likes on specific comments. It was to say the least draining. And yes, that's all for now, but I'll update you all on how I'll manage things with my family from this point forward, given that my trust in them has been shattered. But that will come when I have more time to process everything. Thank you for staying with me through all of this. Take care. It has been 3 weeks since the wedding, and my family has completely lost their composure. So, after the reception, my wife and I took a couple of days to decompress. We stayed off our phones, ignored messages, and simply tried to savor the fact that we were finally married. It was pleasant while it lasted, but the silence was short-lived. By the time we checked our phones, there were about a dozen missed calls and texts from my mother, my father, and of course my brother. The messages ranged from guilt trips to outright fury. My mother's texts were entirely about how I had embarrassed the family, and how I had humiliated my brother by having him removed in front of everyone. My father's texts were more neutral, as if he was attempting to act as the peacemaker, but he was still inclined towards defending my brother. And my brother, well, his messages were simply overtly angry. He called me selfish, claimed I ruined his life, and even accused me of turning his girlfriend against him. Speaking of his girlfriend, she broke up with him. Apparently, the entire wedding stunt was the final straw for her. One of my cousins, who is close to her, informed me she was furious that he disregarded her feelings and made the proposal entirely about himself. She even stated she felt second-hand embarrassment witnessing him being dragged out by security. Honestly, I don't blame her. If I were in her position, I would probably have done the same thing. Anyway, back to the family drama. After ignoring the calls for a bit longer, I finally decided to answer my mother. The moment I picked up, she began weeping, uttering phrases like, "How could you treat your brother like that? He's devastated and broken. And don't you care about this family?" I remained calm and told her that my brother brought this upon himself, and that I had warned him countless times. She refused to listen. She kept insisting that I should have simply let it go because it was just a proposal, and it wouldn't have caused any harm. I told her, "Mom, he disrespected me and my wife on the most significant day of our lives. If you believe I'm the villain for defending myself, then that's your problem, not mine." That was not well received. She began yelling about how I'm tearing the family apart, and I simply ended the call. I was not in the mood to argue further. Then my father decided to appear at our house unannounced. My wife and I were just beginning to feel as though things were settling down when I heard a knock at the door. It was him, standing there with a stern expression. He stated he wished to discuss matters, but it quickly devolved into another lecture about how I should have handled things differently. He kept reiterating, "You didn't have to escalate it like that, and family is supposed to forgive one another." I told him, "Dad, I didn't escalate anything. I told him not to do it and he did it anyway. What was I supposed to do? Allow him to walk all over me?" He had no answer for that, but he still attempted to manipulate me with guilt. At one point he even said, "You know your brother doesn't have anyone else. You're his role model." That remark made me laugh because honestly, if I am his role model, he is doing a terrible job of following my example. The real pandemonium, however, occurred a couple of days later. My wife and I decided to have dinner at a local restaurant, thinking we would finally get a reprieve from all the drama. But guess who appeared? My brother. I have no idea how he knew we would be there, but he stormed in like a man on a mission. He walked directly to our table and began shouting about how I had ruined his life. People in the restaurant were staring, and my wife looked as though she was ready to hurl her drink at him. I told him, "You need to leave before you embarrass yourself even further." That only intensified his anger. He began ranting about how his girlfriend had abandoned him, and how it was all my fault. He claimed, "You made me look like a fool in front of everyone. You destroyed my relationship." I told him, "You did that to yourself. Perhaps if you respected other people's boundaries, you wouldn't be in this predicament." At this point, a manager approached and requested him to leave. My brother refused, asserting he had a right to confront me. The manager threatened to contact the police, and that's when things became physical. My brother attempted to shove past the manager to reach me, but a couple of nearby individuals intervened and restrained him. It was a complete spectacle. People were yelling, my wife was furious, and my brother was dragged out of the restaurant kicking and screaming. After that, my wife and I decided to depart as well. We didn't even finish our food. On the way home, she stated, "I think it's time to sever ties." And honestly, I concur. This entire situation has revealed just how toxic my family can be. And I don't believe I can continue putting myself or my wife through this. Since then, I've initiated no contact with my brother and low contact with my parents. As for my brother, I heard through informal channels that he has been telling anyone who will listen that I am the reason his life is unraveling. He is blaming me for his breakup, his humiliation, and everything else that has gone awry for him. It's frustrating, but at this point I'm done caring. I've expended too much time and energy dealing with his absurdity, and I'm prepared to move forward. My wife and I are concentrating on building our life together and leaving the drama behind. It's not easy, but it feels like the correct decision. I've learned that sometimes you must prioritize yourself and your happiness, even if it means disengaging from individuals who refuse to respect you. That's all for now.